I'll never forget what happened during my time at the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. I was 22 years old, working as a volunteer coordinator for the U.S. Olympic team. This was back in February 2018, and I'd applied for the position thinking it would be this amazing experience. Traveling to South Korea, being part of the Olympics, meeting world-class athletes, and for the most part, it was incredible. I was assigned to help coordinate the figure skating team's schedule, making sure they got to practice sessions on time, handling their equipment transport, basically being available 24/7 for whatever they needed. The pay wasn't great, but I got free housing in the volunteer dormitory and meal vouchers. Plus, I'd get to watch the Olympics for free. I was pumped. The figure skating team practiced at this training facility about 15 minutes from the main Olympic village. It was a smaller rink, away from the main venue, that they used specifically for practice sessions to avoid crowds and media. The building was pretty isolated, surrounded by snow-covered fields and some woods. There was a parking lot, the rink building, and not much else around. Most practice sessions were during the day, but sometimes the skaters wanted late-night ice time when they could focus without distraction. My job was to unlock the facility, turn on the lights and music system, then lock up after they left. On this particular Tuesday night, one of our pairs teams, I'll call them Sarah and Josh, had requested practice time from 10 p.m. to midnight. They were competing in 2 days and wanted extra time to work on their routine. I met them at the rink at 9:45 p.m. with the keys. "Thanks for doing this so late," Sarah said as I unlocked the front door. "No problem," I said. "That's what I'm here for." I got them set up, turned on the rink lights, the music system, adjusted the temperature controls. The facility was completely empty except for the 3 of us. Even the Zamboni driver had gone home for the night. "We should be done by midnight," Josh said. "Maybe a little earlier." "Cool. I'll be in the office doing some paperwork. Just come grab me when you're ready to go." The office was on the 2nd floor, overlooking the rink through big windows. I could see the entire ice surface from up there. I settled in with my laptop to work on scheduling for the next day. Around 10:30 p.m., I looked down at the rink to check on them. They were running through their routine, looking smooth. Everything seemed fine. I went back to my work. About 15 minutes later, I heard the music stop. I looked down and saw Sarah and Josh standing in the middle of the ice, looking toward the far end of the rink. They seemed to be talking to each other, pointing at something. I couldn't see what they were looking at from my angle, so I got up and went to a different window. That's when I saw it. One of the exit doors on the far side of the rink was propped open. Just slightly, maybe 6 inches, enough to let in cold air and snow. That was weird. I'd locked all the doors when we came in. I was sure of it. I went downstairs and walked across the rink area toward the open door. Sarah and Josh skated over to me. "Did you open that door?" Sarah asked. "No, I locked everything. Maybe the lock didn't catch." "We heard it open," Josh said, "like 5 minutes ago. We thought maybe you were checking something outside." A small red flag went off in my head, but I convinced myself it was probably just the wind or a faulty lock. These things happened in old buildings. "I'll make sure it's secure," I said. I walked over to the door and looked outside. It led to a side parking lot that was empty, except for my rental car and their coach's van. Snow was falling lightly. I didn't see anyone. I closed the door and made sure it locked this time, really yanking on it to test it. "All good?" I called to them. "Probably just didn't latch properly." They went back to practicing, and I went back upstairs to the office. But I felt uneasy now. I kept looking down at that door, watching to make sure it stayed closed. Around 11 p.m., the music stopped again. I looked down and saw Sarah and Josh standing on the ice, clearly frustrated. "This is the 4th time," I could hear Sarah saying, her voice echoing in the empty rink. "I know, but we need the music," Josh replied. "We compete in 2 days. Everything was fine an hour ago," Sarah said. "What the hell is wrong with it?" Josh skated over to the edge and looked up at me. "Hey, the music keeps stopping." "What?" I called down. "It plays for like 10 seconds, then cuts out," Sarah yelled, skating over to join him. "We've tried it 4 times now. We really need to run this with music," Josh added. "Can you check it?" "Yeah, let me see what's going on," I said. I went back downstairs. The music system was on the 1st floor, in a small equipment room near the entrance. I went in and looked at it. Everything seemed fine. All the connections were secure. The power was on. "Try it now," I called out. Josh hit play on their remote. The music started, then cut out after about 10 seconds. "Still not working," he yelled, frustrated. I messed with the system for a few more minutes, unplugging and replugging cables, checking the speakers. Nothing seemed wrong with it. "I think there might be a problem with the electrical," I said. "Want me to call maintenance?" Sarah and Josh looked at each other. Then Josh said, "Forget it. We'll just practice without music. We only have like 40 minutes left anyway." I should have called maintenance. Or better yet, I should have suggested we pack it up and leave. But I didn't want to seem like I was overreacting or not doing my job properly. So I just said okay and went back upstairs. They continued practicing in silence. It was eerie, watching them skate in the quiet rink, with just the sound of their blades on the ice. At 11:30 p.m., I was answering emails when I heard Sarah scream. I jumped up and looked down at the rink. Sarah and Josh were both standing in the center, staring at something. I followed their gaze and felt my stomach drop. Someone was standing in the doorway of the equipment room I'd just been in, just standing there in the dark doorway, watching them. "Who's that?" Josh yelled, his voice echoing in the empty rink. The figure didn't move or respond. My heart was racing now. I grabbed my phone and ran downstairs as fast as I could. "Hey!" I shouted as I reached the rink level. "This is a closed facility. You need to leave." The person stepped out of the doorway into the light. It was a man, maybe in his 40s, wearing a heavy winter coat and a beanie. He had this weird smile on his face. "I'm sorry," he said in heavily accented English. "I thought this was open for public skating." "No, this is a private training facility for the Olympic team," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "How did you get in here?" "The door was open," he said, pointing toward the side exit, the same one that had been propped open earlier. "That door was locked," I said. He shrugged. "It was open when I tried it." Sarah and Josh had skated over to the edge of the rink nearest to me. I could tell they were freaked out. "You need to leave now," I said firmly. This is private property." Of course," he said, still smiling. "I'm leaving." But he didn't move toward the exit. He just stood there, looking at Sarah and Josh. "Now," I said, "or I'm calling security." "I'm going," he said. He started walking, but not toward the exit, toward the stands, like he was going to sit down and watch. I pulled out my phone and dialed the security number for the Olympic facilities. While it was ringing, I kept my eyes on the guy. "This is Marcus with the volunteer coordination team," I said when someone answered. "I'm at the practice facility on Route 32. We have an unauthorized person in the building who won't leave. Can you send someone?" "We'll have someone there in 10 minutes, the security officer said. The man had stopped walking and was now just standing in the stands area, still watching Sarah and Josh. "Security is on the way," I called to him. "You can either leave now on your own, or you can explain to them why you're trespassing." Finally, he started walking toward the exit, but as he passed by me, he stopped and said something in Korean that I didn't understand. Then he laughed and walked out the side door. I immediately went to the door and locked it behind him, then ran to check all the other exits. The front door was still locked. The back door was locked, just that one side door had been compromised. Sarah and Josh were already taking off their skates when I got back to the rink. "We're done," Sarah said. "That was too creepy." "I don't blame you," I said. "I'm really sorry about that." "It's not your fault," Josh said. "But yeah, we're out of here." We waited together in the lobby for security to arrive. They showed up about 8 minutes later, 2 officers who searched the entire building and checked the perimeter outside. The man was gone. One of the security officers found something that made my blood run cold. On the equipment room door, the room where the man had been standing, there were scratch marks around the lock. Fresh ones. Someone had tried to pick or force the lock. "He was trying to get into this room while you were upstairs," the officer said. "That's probably why your music system wasn't working. He was in here messing with the equipment." The other officer pulled out a tablet and showed us the security camera footage. The facility only had 2 cameras, one at the front entrance and one in the parking lot. He pulled up the footage and pointed at the screen. "Look, here he is, arriving at 10:17 p.m., the officer said. I watched as the man appeared on screen, walking around the building perimeter. "He's testing doors," the officer said. "See? Front door, locked. Side window, locked. Then he gets to the side exit. We watched him pull out some kind of tool. and work on the lock for about 30 seconds until it opened. "Oh my God," Sarah said, her face pale. "He was planning this." The officer nodded. "He knew you were here. He watched you arrive and waited until you were distracted to try the doors. They asked if I wanted to file a police report. I said yes. They also recommended we not use this facility for late-night practices anymore, at least not without additional security present. We gave our statements to the local police, who showed up around 1 a.m. They searched the area, but didn't find the man. They said there had been a few incidents during the Olympics of people trying to sneak into facilities, either to steal equipment or to get access to athletes. They told us to be more careful about late-night sessions at isolated locations. Sarah and Josh withdrew from using that facility for the rest of the Olympics. They practiced at the main venue instead, even though it was more crowded. I didn't blame them. The worst part was finding out later that the man had been in the equipment room for at least 15 minutes while I was upstairs. He'd been watching Sarah and Josh practice through the door window. When I went down to check the music system, he'd been hiding in there. I'd probably been standing just a few feet from him. I finished out my volunteer assignment, but I never did another late-night facility opening. I made sure any evening practices had at least 2 volunteers present, and I requested that security do regular patrols of isolated facilities. I'm 28 now, working in sports management in the US. I still love the Olympics, but I'll never forget how vulnerable we were that night in that empty facility, how easily someone got in, how he'd been watching us, waiting, and I still wonder what he would have done if security hadn't been coming. Would he have just left, or was he planning something worse? I don't work alone at night anymore, ever, and I always check every single lock twice before settling in anywhere. This happened to me during the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics. I was 25 years old, working as a freelance photographer. I'd gotten credentials to cover the games for a couple of smaller sports magazines, and I was so excited. This was my first Olympics, my first time in Russia, and a huge opportunity to build my portfolio. The problem was, I was completely broke. Olympic housing was insanely expensive. Hotels were charging $400 to $500 a night, and the official Olympic accommodations were out of my budget. So I did what any broke freelancer would do. I found a cheap apartment rental on a Russian version of Craigslist called Avito. The listing was for a studio apartment about 30 minutes from the Olympic Park. The photos looked decent, small but clean. The landlord, who went by Dmitry in his messages, which was asking $50 a night, which was a steal compared to everything else. He said he lived in Moscow and was just renting out his Sochi apartment during the Olympics to make extra money. I should have been more suspicious about the price, but I was desperate and running out of time. The Olympics were starting in 3 days, and I still didn't have a place to stay. I messaged Dmitry. "Hi, I'm a photographer covering the Olympics. I need a place for 2 weeks. Is your apartment still available?" He replied within an hour. "Yes, available. $700 for 2 weeks, cash only. I can meet you in Sochi to give you keys." That seemed reasonable. I agreed to meet him on February 5th, 2 days before the opening ceremony. I flew into Sochi on the 5th and took a taxi to the address he'd given me, an apartment building in a residential area that looked pretty run down. The buildings were old Soviet-style concrete blocks, kind of depressing but not totally sketchy. Dmitry met me in the parking lot. He was probably in his 50s, heavy-set, wearing a tracksuit and smoking a cigarette. "You are the American photographer?" he said in broken English. "Yeah, that's me. I'm Jake." "I am Dmitry. You have the money?" I pulled out $700 in cash and handed it to him. He counted it carefully, then handed me a set of keys. "Apartment 4B, 4th floor. No elevator. You walk up. Hot water works most days. Sometimes not." "Sometimes not?" I said. He shrugged. "Is Russia? Sometimes hot water, sometimes cold water. You deal with it." That should have been a red flag, but I'd already paid him. "Okay, what about internet?" "No internet," he said. "You go to cafe for internet." Another red flag, but again, I'd already committed. I told myself I could deal with it for 2 weeks. "If you have problems, you call me," he said, handing me a business card with a phone number on it. "But I am in Moscow, so I cannot help much. Try not to have problems." Great, very reassuring. He left, and I dragged my suitcase and camera equipment up 4 flights of stairs to apartment 4B. The stairwell was dark and smelled like cigarettes and something I couldn't identify. The walls had graffiti on them. I unlocked the apartment and went inside. It was not what the photos had shown. The furniture was old and stained. There were cracks in the walls. The kitchen was tiny and dirty. The bathroom had mold in the corners. But I was tired and it was late and I had to shoot the opening ceremony in 2 days, so I decided to just make it work. I cleaned the place as best I could and set up my equipment. The first few nights were okay. The apartment was cold and the bed was uncomfortable, but I was so busy covering events during the day that I'd just come back exhausted and pass out. On the 4th night, February 9th, I got back to the apartment around 11 p.m. after shooting the snowboarding events. I was organizing my photos on my laptop when I heard voices in the hallway outside my door. 2 men, speaking Russian in low voices. Then I heard one of them try my doorknob. I froze. The doorknob turned, but the deadbolt was locked. They tried it again, harder this time. Then one of them knocked. 3 hard knocks. "Hello!" I called out in English. "Who is it?" More Russian I couldn't understand. Then more knocking, louder. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. 2 guys, probably in their 30s, wearing leather jackets. One of them was holding something. I couldn't tell what. "I don't speak Russian," I said through the door. "What do you want?" One of them said something in Russian, then in broken English. "Open door." "Why? Who are you?" "Dmitri sent us. We need to check apartment." My stomach sank. That didn't make any sense. Why would Dmitri send people to check the apartment at 11 p.m. without warning me? "I'm going to call Dmitri," I said. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number on his business card. It rang and rang. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. The guys were still outside my door. One of them said something in Russian, and I heard what sounded like keys jingling. They had keys. I watched through the peephole as one of them pulled out a key and started trying to unlock the door. The deadbolt was still engaged, so the door only opened about an inch before catching on the chain lock. "Get away from my door!" I yelled. "I'm calling the police!" They said something to each other in Russian, laughing. Then they pushed harder on the door. The chain lock was straining. I ran to the window to see if I could climb out, but I was on the 4th floor. No fire escape, just a straight drop to the parking lot below. I grabbed my phone and tried to remember the emergency number in Russia. Was it 112 or 911? I had no idea. I tried 112. A woman answered in Russian. "English! Do you speak English?" I said desperately. "Little English," she said. "What is emergency?" "2 men are trying to break into my apartment. I need police." "What is address?" I gave her the address, stumbling over the Russian street name. "Police come," she said. "You stay inside. Locked door." "The door is locked. They have keys. They're trying to get in right now." The chain lock broke with a loud crack. The door flew open. The 2 men walked into my apartment like they owned the place. I backed away toward the window, my heart pounding. "Get out," I yelled. "The police are coming." The taller one smiled and said in English, "No police coming. You call wrong number, American." "I called 112. That's the emergency number." "Yes, but you think police come fast in Sochi during Olympics?" He laughed. "Maybe 1 hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe never." The other guy was looking around my apartment, checking out my camera equipment on the table. "What do you want?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We want to talk about apartment," the tall one said, pulling out a cigarette and lighting it. "You see, there is problem." "What problem?" "I paid Dmitri." "Ah, yes, Dmitri." He smiled. "You paid him $700, yes?" "Yeah, for 2 weeks." "And who is this Dmitri?" he asked. "You meet him before?" "No, but he had the keys." "Anyone can make keys," he interrupted. "You are a smart photographer, but very stupid about Russia." The other guy picked up my camera, my Canon 5D Mark III. He examined it, turning it over in his hands. "Hey, put that down," I said. "Nice camera," he said in thickly accented English. "Very expensive camera." "I paid for this apartment," I said. "You can't just come in here." The tall one took a long drag of his cigarette. "Let me explain situation to you. This is my apartment. I own it. I rent it to people during Olympics, but I did not rent to you." "That's bullshit. Dmitri." "There is no Dmitri," he said flatly. "Or maybe there is Dmitri, but he does not own this place. He is scammer. He rent apartment that is not his. Take your money. Disappear." My stomach dropped. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Call your Dmitri. See if he answers." I tried calling again. Straight to voicemail this time. not even ringing. "You see?" the tall one said. "He has your money. He's probably in Moscow now, laughing. So what do you want from me?" "Very simple. This is my apartment. You want to stay? You pay me. Same you paid Dmitry. $700 for 2 weeks. I don't have another $700. I already paid. Not my problem. You got scammed. Very unfortunate. But this is my apartment, so you pay me or you leave." "I'm calling the police myself," I said, pulling out my phone again. "Go ahead," he said, not looking concerned at all. "You call police. They come, maybe in 1 hour. You explain situation. You paid criminal for illegal sublet of my apartment. You have no lease, no legal paper. Police will ask you to leave. Maybe they fine you for illegal occupancy. Maybe they take away your Olympic credential for breaking Russian law. That's not how it works. This is Russia," he said coldly. "This is exactly how it works, especially during Olympics. They do not want foreigners making problems. You think they care about your $700? They tell you leave and find hotel." I stood there, my mind racing. Address?" he laughed. "Business card with address?" he laughed. "Business card with disconnected phone number?" "Yes, very good proof." The guy holding my camera said something to him in Russian. The tall one nodded and turned back to me. "So, you have 2 choices. 1, you pay me $700 and you stay for 2 weeks. No more problems. 2, you leave now. Try to find hotel at last minute during Olympics. Probably pay $500 per night if you even find room." "There's a 3rd choice," I said. "I don't pay you shit and I call the police anyway." "Then we take camera," the guy holding it said simply. "As payment for time, you already stayed here. 4 nights, $50 per night, $200. But camera worth more than $2,000. So we keep camera and you leave. Fair trade. You can't just steal my camera." "We not steal," the tall one said. "You are squatting in my apartment illegally. I take camera as compensation. Very legal in Russia." "Bullshit." "You want to test this?" he said, stepping closer to me. "You want to sit in Russian police station for 6 hours explaining how you rent apartment on internet from stranger? Missing your Olympic photos? Missing your deadlines? Getting reputation as problem?" I felt trapped, completely fucked. Even if they were lying about the police, I couldn't risk losing 6 hours arguing with Russian cops. I had events to shoot tomorrow, deadlines to meet. "How do I know you won't just kick me out after I pay you?" I asked. "You don't," he said, shrugging. "But what choice do you have?" The other guy set my camera back down on the table and looked at me expectantly. "I told you, I don't have $700 in cash right now." "How much you have?" "Maybe $200. "Not enough. Give me $200 now, plus camera." "No, I need my camera for work." "Then you need to find $500 more, very quickly." We stood there in a standoff. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do. Then I heard it. Sirens outside. All 3 of us froze. The guy with my camera looked at his friend and said something quickly in Russian. It sounded like a curse word. They both ran to the window and looked down at the parking lot. "Blyant," one of them muttered. Police cars were pulling up, 2 of them, lights flashing. "Fuck," the tall one said in English. He pointed at me. "You're lucky tonight, but we know where you stay. Olympics is 2 more weeks. We see you again." They both ran out of the apartment. I could hear them thundering down the stairs. I went to the window and watched them come out of the building and run across the parking lot into the darkness. The police didn't chase them. They were already gone. 2 officers came up to my apartment a few minutes later. One of them spoke decent English. "You called about break-in?" he asked. I explained everything. The rental scam, Dmitry, the 2 men demanding more money. I showed them my messages with Dmitry and the business card he'd given me. The officer shook his head. "This is common scam during Olympics. Many foreigners get tricked. You are lucky you called police." So I actually did call the right number. "Yes, 112 is correct." He looked around the apartment. "You should not stay here. These men will come back. Where am I supposed to go? Everything else is booked or too expensive." He gave me the number for the Olympic Housing Assistance Office and suggested I go there first thing in the morning. For tonight, he recommended I go to a 24-hour cafe or the airport, anywhere public with people around. I packed my stuff in about 10 minutes and got the hell out of that apartment. I ended up spending the night in the Sochi airport, sleeping on a bench with my camera bag as a pillow. The next morning, I went to the Olympic Housing Office and explained what happened. They were actually really helpful, They had a list of emergency accommodations for situations like this. I ended up getting placed in a hostel-style setup with other journalists and volunteers. It wasn't luxurious, but it was safe and legitimate. I tried calling Dimitri's number dozens of times over the next few days. He never answered. The police said they'd investigate, but I never heard back from them. I lost my $700 and had to spend another $600 on the hostel for the rest of my trip. I still finished covering the Olympics and got some great photos that helped my career. But that experience in the apartment haunts me. Those guys could have done anything. They could have beaten me up, stolen all my equipment, or worse. I got lucky that the police actually came when they did. I'm 35 now, still working as a sports photographer. I've covered 3 more Olympics since then: Rio, Pyeongchang, and Tokyo. But I never use sketchy apartment rentals anymore. I either stay in official Olympic housing or verified hotels, even if it means going into debt to afford it. And I always research the local emergency numbers before I travel anywhere. That $700 scam taught me an expensive lesson. When something seems too good to be true, especially in a foreign country during a major event, it probably is. And no amount of money saved is worth putting yourself in danger. I was 23 when this happened at the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics. I was working as a social media coordinator for the Canadian Olympic team. Basically, my job was to run their Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter accounts, posting behind-the-scenes content, athlete interviews, and live updates during competitions. It was my first Olympics gig, and I was so pumped. I'd beaten out like 200 other applicants for the position. The Canadian Olympic Committee put me up in the Media Village, this complex of apartments where journalists, photographers, and media staff from all the participating countries stayed. The Media Village was pretty nice. Clean rooms, decent cafeteria, gym, everything you'd need. My roommate was this cool photographer from Toronto named Michelle, who was covering the hockey team. We got along great from day one. The building had security at the main entrance. You needed your Olympic credential to get in, so it felt pretty safe. I wasn't worried about anything except doing my job well and not screwing up in front of the whole world. About 4 days into the Olympics, February 8th, I was in the cafeteria getting lunch when this guy approached me. "Excuse me," he said in English with a noticeable accent. "You work for Canada team, yes?" He was probably in his early 30s, tall, wearing a media credential around his neck. I glanced at it. It said he was press from some sports website I'd never heard of. "Yeah, I run their social media," I said. "I am Victor," he said, extending his hand. "I write for Eastern Europe Sports News. I would love to interview with Canadian athletes. You can help arrange?" This was actually part of my job, coordinating media requests, so I gave him my business card and told him to email me with specific interview requests. "Thank you so much," he said, smiling. "You are very kind. What is name?" "I'm Alicia." "Beautiful name. I see you before in Village. Building C, yes? You live there?" That was a weird thing to say. How did he know which building I was in? Yeah, I said, feeling a little uncomfortable. "I am in Building C also," he said. "Maybe I see you later. We can discuss interview arrangements." He walked away before I could respond. Something about the interaction felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on what exactly. I told myself I was just being paranoid, because I was in a foreign country. That night, I was walking back to my room around 9 p.m. after posting some content from the figure skating competition. As I was unlocking my door, I noticed Victor standing at the end of the hallway, just watching me. "Oh, hi, Victor," I said, trying to sound normal, even though my heart was beating faster. "Hello, Alicia," he said. "You have busy day?" "Yeah, pretty busy. Lots of content to post." "You work very hard today," he said. He started walking toward me. "I admire a woman who is dedicated," I laughed nervously. "Just doing my job. Listen, I gotta get some sleep. Email me about those interview requests, okay?" Of course," he said, but he kept walking closer. He stopped about 3 feet from my door. "You know, I never receive your email address. It's on my business card, the one I gave you earlier." "Ah, yes, I must have lose it. Can you tell again?" I gave him my work email address, just wanting him to leave. "And personal email? Maybe we discuss things more casual way." A red flag went off in my head. "My work email is fine for any media requests. Have a good night." I went into my room and locked the door behind me. Michelle wasn't back yet. She was out shooting the evening hockey game. I looked through the peephole and saw Victor still standing in the hallway, looking at my door. He stood there for like 2 full minutes before finally walking away. I texted Michelle, "There's this weird guy from the press corps who's being creepy. Just FYI in case you see him hanging around," she replied. "Ugh, that sucks. What's his name?" "Victor. Claims he's from some Eastern European sports site. Tall, dark hair, 30s. I'll keep an eye out." "Want me to come back early?" "Nah, I'm fine. Just wanted to give you a heads up." But I wasn't fine. I was unsettled. I kept checking the peephole every few minutes, half expecting to see him standing there. Around 11 p.m., Michelle came back. I told her more about the interaction, and she agreed it was weird. "Report him to security if he does it again," she said. "They don't fuck around with harassment here." The next day, I was careful to avoid Victor. I saw him a couple times in the cafeteria, and he'd wave at me, but I pretended I didn't see him and left quickly. That night, February 9th, I got back to my room around 8 p.m. I saw a white piece of paper on the floor near my door. I picked it up and unfolded it. It was written in neat handwriting. "Alicia, I would very much like to take you for dinner. I know good restaurant outside Olympic Zone. Please meet me tomorrow at 7 p.m. at front gate. Victor." I showed it to Michelle. "Okay, that's definitely crossing a line," she said. "You need to report this." "I know I will, but I also don't want to make a huge deal out of it if he's just socially awkward or something." "Alicia, he's not being socially awkward. He's stalking you." I knew she was right, but I felt embarrassed, like I was overreacting or being paranoid. I decided I'd just ignore the note and avoid him, and if he persisted, then I'd report it. The next day, February 10th, I spent most of my time at the speed skating venue, posting live updates and interviewing athletes. I got back to the media village around 9 p.m., exhausted. As I was walking to Building C, I saw Victor waiting outside the entrance. He saw me and smiled. "Alicia, I wait for you at front gate at 7 p.m. You not come?" "Yeah, sorry, I was working," I said, trying to walk past him into the building. He stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "Maybe we go now? I know it is late, but restaurant's still open. I'm really tired, Victor. I need to get some sleep." "Just for 1 hour," he said. "We talk about Canadian athletes. I am very interested in stories. Email me your questions. I'll answer them professionally." His smile faded a little. "You not like me?" "It's not about that. I'm just here to work, not to socialize." "I see," he said, his voice cold now. "You think you are too good person for me?" My stomach tightened. His whole demeanor had changed. "I didn't say that. I just need to keep things professional. Now please move. I want to go inside." He stood there for another few seconds, staring at me. Then he stepped aside. I rushed past him into the building and practically ran to my room. When I got there, I immediately called the Olympic security office. "I need to report someone who's harassing me," I told the security officer. I explained everything: the cafeteria approach, him knowing where I lived, standing outside my door, the note, waiting for me tonight. "What is his name and credential number?" the officer asked. I gave him Victor's name, but realized I'd never actually looked at the credential number on his badge. "We will look into this. In the meantime, if he approaches you again, you should call us immediately. And do not go anywhere alone with him." "I won't." I felt a little better after reporting it, but I was still on edge. Michelle came back around 11 p.m. and I filled her in. "Good, you reported it," she said. "Hopefully they'll talk to him and he'll back off." We both went to bed, but I had trouble sleeping. Every sound in the hallway made me jump. Around 2 a.m., I heard someone trying my door handle. I sat up immediately, my heart pounding. The handle was definitely turning, slowly, like someone was testing if it was locked. I shook Michelle awake. "Someone's trying to get in." She jumped up, and we both stared at the door. The handle turned again. Then we heard Victor's voice, muffled through the door. "Alicia, I know you wake. Open door. We need talk." "Go away," I yelled. "I'm calling security." "You make mistake," he said. "I try to help you." "Security is coming," Michelle yelled. "Security's coming," Michelle yelled through the door. "Leave now, or you're getting arrested." We heard him say something in another language, Russian maybe, then footsteps walking away quickly. Security arrived about 3 minutes later, 2 officers. We told them what happened and showed them the note he'd left. They checked the hallway cameras and confirmed that Victor had been standing outside our door for about 5 minutes before trying the handle. "This is very serious," one of the officers said. "We will find him and remove credentials. He will not be allowed in Media Village anymore." They searched Building C, but Victor wasn't in his room, or rather the room he claimed was his. So it turned out he wasn't even assigned to Building C. He'd been lying about that. The next morning, I got a call from the security office. They'd found Victor and revoked his Olympic credentials. His press credential was fake. He wasn't actually a journalist. He'd somehow gotten in to the Media Village using a fraudulent pass. "Who is he then?" I asked. "We are not certain," the officer said. "He have multiple passports from different countries. We have turned him over to Chinese authorities for investigation." That made my blood run cold. Multiple passports? Who was this guy? The security team increased patrols in the Media Village and offered to move Michelle and me to a different room on a higher floor with security cameras directly outside. We accepted immediately. I never found out Victor's real identity or what he actually wanted. The Canadian Olympic Committee told me he'd been targeting several women from different countries' media team. There were 3 other reports of him approaching women, asking them to dinner, showing up outside their rooms. The Chinese authorities apparently held him for questioning, but then released him and deported him. The official word was that he was just an obsessed fan trying to get close to Olympic staff. Not a serious threat, but I don't believe that. You don't carry multiple fake passports if you're just an overzealous fan. I finished out the Olympics, but I was paranoid the rest of the time. I never went anywhere alone. Always made sure Michelle or other colleagues knew where I was, and I checked over my shoulder constantly. I'm 25 now, and I've worked at one more Olympics since then, Paris 2024 for the Summer Games, but I'm way more cautious now. I don't give out my information to anyone I don't thoroughly vet. I report any suspicious behavior immediately, even if I feel like I'm overreacting. And I always check who's at my door before opening it. That experience taught me that major international events like the Olympics attract all kinds of people, not just fans and athletes and journalists, but also people with bad intentions who see the chaos and crowds as an opportunity. Victor, whoever he really was, had specifically targeted foreign women who were alone in an unfamiliar country. He'd counted on us being too polite or too unsure to report him immediately. I still think about what might have happened if I'd opened that door at 2 a.m., or if I'd agreed to go to dinner with him outside the Olympic zone where there was no security. I got lucky that I trusted my instincts and that Michelle was there with me, but it could have gone so much worse.